Well, hey, folks, it's your old pal, King Krampus, and welcome back to Krampus Talk.
Krampus Talk!
Well, for lack of anything better to talk about, apparently there's some buzz roaming around the Twixers about, I guess, the difficulty of finding friendship in RPGs and the dangers of inviting strangers over to your house to play a TTRPG for the first time. And I guess my take is to bring up something I once said to somebody in the comments section. This is a lonely hobby for lonely people. When you're in high school and in college age, it's fairly easy to have a group of gamer friends and play regularly, but the older you get, the more that will attenuate and start to disappear. Some people are lucky and are able to maintain their gaming groups well into adulthood. Some people are more fortunate about being plugged into some sort of social network where they're able to, interact with new people and all that kind of stuff. But it's no guarantee. In many ways, the framing of ideas like the TTRPG community kind of hurts people in a way by altering their expectations of what they think they're going to get out of this hobby. You're not really joining a community, and there's no guarantees that you're going to be able to play these games or make friends out of the process. Even if you do manage to meet up with some strangers off meetup.org or something like that, and you get a game going, it can run for a while. But everyone's got their own different lives and interests, and some people are only there because they just want to scratch that gaming itch, but they're not interested in being your fucking friend. And stuff like that should be incidental. You can't force friendship into existence. Either you will develop a friendship as time goes or not, and that's fine. But for the bulk of people who enjoy this hobby, as you get older, one of the main things that will drag you away from the hobby is just the sheer lack of activity in that hobby, especially if you're a player. If you're only into playing, you're kind of screwed past a certain point if you can't maintain a group to join. At least if you're into game mastering, you have other options. I spent years, for the bulk of my experience with the hobby has not been playing it or running the games, but largely sitting around at night coming up with campaign outlines and adventure outlines and NPCs and going to extreme detail of character creation guidelines for this and that, and then scrapping the whole thing and then moving on and doing something else with a different game system over and over and over again. But on those times where I have managed to actually get enough people in the room at once to run the game, because I had spent so much time going over and scrapping various ideas, that when you do actually get to sit down and run the game, you run a better game. You're better prepared for it. You know all your lore. You've worked out all the kinks and the story progress and the mission profiles and random encounters and all that other kind of shit. You should take the time in between to hone your craft, and then that way you're better at your craft when you actually get to display your craft. Is kind of how it works. I also, by focusing more on game mastering than trying to be a player, you're able to recruit people who aren't traditional players, people who might be curious, or people you can just kind of talk into it. These things require social skills, and it's just kind of like an unfortunate truth of the hobby that a lot of nerds aren't good at social skills. A lot of people who are attracted to these games aren't necessarily the best ambassadors for themselves, and all that kind of stuff. And, that can be sad. And it's made more difficult by the fact that in modern times, increasingly, meeting strangers is dangerous. Always has been, always will be. It's exacerbated by the fact that now a huge chunk of people who've been brought into the hobby in the last decade are all of a generation that's been trained to be activists. And so they'll look for any little opportunity to activate and make some sort of grandiose stand about it, oh my god, I can't believe you said this and that, or you're having this in your game, or you won't let me do this. I'm here to roleplay as a small part of myself so I can finally feel like I'm being seen, and shit like that. All that increases the odds that you might have a bad time happen by bringing a bunch of random people together off the internet into your actual own physical space. While I don't personally like online gaming, I understand why people do it and resort to it, because it's the outlet that's most available, especially once you're past a certain age or you live in a kind of an isolated area. It's unfortunate that that's the case, because I think playing role-playing games online has been part of the grand, slow degradation of the hobby to now we're to a point where they're wanting to make it all digital in a virtual environment, just like any other MMORPG. But all that means is that, the tourists, as they say, will be playing the video games, and the real hobby will fall back down on the real hobbyists, the people who enjoy it for more than just an opportunity to meet people. If that's your primary goal, is to just have a social life, you might as well just go to a sports bar and just drink and watch some football, because that's what those people are doing. This hobby is not for that. God, I saw someone post about how, he saw some dude buy a bunch of D&D books because he was going to try to pick up some gamer girls because he thinks gamer girls are hot. Which is wow, because gamer girls don't already have more options of men who would like to fuck them than they could possibly deal with. So yeah, they also need people pretending to be nerds to try to poach them by impressing them with their D&D collection. Because that's how this works, apparently. I understand the excitement that a lot of us older gamers had when the genre became popular again, or popular for the first time, let's say. The opportunity to teach and pass on this hobby to a younger generation, that's exciting. Part of being an adult is passing knowledge on to the younger generation and all. Too many people assume that these kids would just be miniature versions of us, and they're not. They're different. They arose in a different environment, they were raised differently, their experience of the world and technology is different, and their expectations of what they think these games are is massively different than what they were and what they can be turned into. There's a point where you alter what a role-playing game is so much it stops being a role-playing game. I mean, that's my whole critique of the VTT. It's okay, so basically you just have a turn-based multiplayer video game here. That's not a role-playing game. This thing is supposed to be only limited by our imagination, not limited by how much money you can spend on designer player icons and NPC icons and map tiles so that your dungeon has the right type of stone flooring and shit. That's not what this fucking hobby is. But they've turned it into that because the people running the hobby just want to commodify it, and either being run by people who are from outside the hobby and just want to commodify it, or they're being financed by people who don't give a shit and they just want to make money out of it. And I don't know. I don't know if that's actually been healthy for this hobby at all. It seems to be in worse shape than it ever has been, in spite of the fact that so many people are making money off of it, and there's so many options and so much easier to get hold of games thanks to the internet shopping and all that kind of shit, yada yada yada. It seems all pretty fractured and causing a lot of people a lot of mental anguish and dysfunction. So yeah, but anyway, I guess to the point, if you're here to make friends, good luck. It's something that can happen, and it is a way for adults to network with people with similar interests that you might become friends with. But that's all it is. It's a might, a maybe. It's not a guarantee. And you shouldn't feel miserable if it doesn't work out for you. Almost everyone's a fucking cunt in one way or the other. So, don't be surprised when you find yourself surrounded by a bunch of cunts. Until next time.
First of all, what went through my mind is how stupid am I to actually volunteer for this? It was unbelievably painful.